Welcome to the Sportsnaut NFL conversation. I'm Jim Cerny, joined by New York Jets punter Thomas Morstead. And Thomas, thanks for a few minutes today during a busy training camp for you.
Glad to be here, Jim. Thank you.
So we're here to talk a little bit about the Jets and the upcoming season. But first off, we want to talk about the Punt For ALS campaign that you have initiated, putting together in honor of your friend Steve Gleason. Can you talk a little bit about it? What your goals are here, trying to raise awareness about ALS, which of course Steve has dealt with for, well over a decade now.
Yeah, I mean, really, first off, thanks for having me on to talk about it. Yeah, Steve's been a friend for my entire professional career, and I've watched his journey and watched him inspire millions of people, and it's really just an opportunity for me to say thank you to him personally. The organization that they started back in 2011 called Team Gleason. Really, the goal is, obviously to raise a little money for them, but more importantly, the goal is to raise awareness for what Team Gleason does and why it's important. They do so many different things. Number one, they provide technology to people that have been diagnosed with ALS to allow them to be able to continue to communicate and stay connected with family and friends. And I see that as the number one thing that they do. And right now, I think they're getting about 700 to 800 applications for technology every month. So tremendous amount of resource needed. And another thing that they do is they do adventures with ALS patients, and this is more of an opportunity to highlight that people can continue living lives and not giving up. No white flags is their big motto at Team Gleason. So that could be going skiing on a quad skiing chair. It could be coming to a New York Jets football game and being on the sideline and meeting some of your favorite Jets players pregame. It could be hiking Machu Picchu, which Steve did with some close friends years ago. So it's just an attempt to highlight that you can keep going and market that you can still have an adventure-filled life. Another thing they've done is they've lobbied for law changes with insurance and making sure that some of the equipment that's needed is now covered under insurance with the Steve Gleason Act. So there's just a few things that they've done that are really important. And I've seen firsthand through a former coach of mine that was diagnosed with ALS, the resource that they were able to transfer over to this family that was scared and didn't know what was going on. It allowed that family to just kind of get the whole book of information and allowed them to really enjoy time that they all had together, as opposed to going on this whole crazy journey that Steve's had to go on himself personally. So they just do really good things all the way across the board. And again, it's just an opportunity for me to say thank you for the inspiration and perspective that Steve has just given to me and in my life.
Yeah, I know that you've pledged $1,000 for each punt you drop inside the 20-yard line, which would have been a hefty check last season with the way you were dropping them inside the 20-yard line.
Yeah, listen, I think it's a cool way for fans to be, engaged with it and to kind of be keeping up with the performance week to week throughout the season, and it gives me an opportunity to kind of provide regular updates and also highlighting these different aspects of what Team Gleason does and why it's important. So, and I think fans I've already had a ton of people reach out saying, "Hey, is this something we can match you along with?" Right, whether it's $1 per inside the 20 or 5 or 20, and so. This is kind of a morphing thing over, that's why we announced it early to maybe get the bugs out and see what people were interested in doing. And so, I think anytime you do something, you got to have some skin in the game personally, and so this is kind of my family's big philanthropic thing for the season. And obviously, hopefully, we don't punt nearly as much as we did last year. But no one's ever upset when the ball's down to the 8-yard line and our defense goes out there. So I thought it would be kind of a win-win thing to do.
It's crazy. And I know this is, getting a little bit away from the campaign, but you were a force for the team last year. You and Greg Zuerlein were forces. Zuerlein, for the second year in a row, was kind of the go-to offensively for the Jets, unfortunately, with, the struggles offensively for the team. He was the go-to there, but you weren't just dropping him inside the 20 last year. First of all, you punted 99 times. I know you don't want to recreate that this season. Yeah. I want to see a little bit less of the field this season. But not only were you dropping him inside the 20, I lost count, but dropping him inside the 10. It was crazy how accurate you were at pinning other teams back. And then, as you said, boy, let that Jet defense go to work from that point.
Yeah, listen, it was really enjoyable for me personally, and not that we were not to be punting that much, but it was enjoyable to be playing for a team with a solid defense like we had, and with a head coach who was telling me to be aggressive and saying, hey, listen, if the worst that happens is we have a touchback and that the other team still has to go 80 yards against our defense, I'm okay if that's the worst thing that happens. Right. But so don't be afraid of the touchback, right? So I want you to be aggressive, and maybe 2 or 3 or 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4, you end up with the ball at the 6 or the 5 or the 4, and maybe one of those ends up as a touchback. But man, when we get that ball at the 3 or 4 yard line, I'm thinking we're scoring, and we did last year, right? It changed some games for us, and it helped us in the Chiefs game when we were down 17-0. We pin them, get a safety, and all of a sudden we come back and tie it. We almost won that game, and same thing against Denver Broncos. We got a safety there to kind of, get us going, and we had a third one in the season as well. So it's fun to do a job. I think it synergizes with a good defense, and we can all highlight each other. It's good.
Yeah. And I mentioned you and Zuerlein kind of, hand in glove, if you will, the kicker, the punter, 2 veterans. You guys both have, I don't know if you found the fountain of youth or if you own the fountain of youth, but, still going strong. This is going to be your 16th NFL season.
That's a lot of I certainly have not found the fountain of youth. And if anybody knows where I can find it, let me know. I tell people it gets harder every year physically, but experience plays a big part in finding a good working environment. Working with specialists like Thomas Hennessy and Greg Zuerlein, that all 3 of us have been around the block. We know what we need to do. We know how we need to do it. We all have higher expectations of our own individual self than we do for each other. So that means we generally get along, right? Because we all have such almost unreasonable expectations of ourselves. And having a coach like Brant Boyer, who, coaches say they trust their players. This guy trusts us, and he lets us dictate a lot of how our working schedule looks throughout the week to get the best results on Sunday. And when you have all those things that are working in concert together, hopefully it allows for synergy where we can really, play at a high level and hopefully, come through when the team needs us to come through.
Yeah. We spoke a year ago at this time. And of course, all the hype and the hard knocks in training camp and everything. And, every other question was about Aaron Rodgers that all you guys are facing. Now you've had a full year of Aaron Rodgers being your teammate. You've only had 4 actual plays in the regular season with Aaron Rodgers on the field. Tell me a little bit about the difference this go round, this training camp, as opposed to a year ago when A-Rod was new to the group.
I mean, I don't know if that's related to just not having hard knocks or, I think there's not, I mean, we're certainly not under the radar, but it feels less so than last year. Yeah. It feels a little more like going away to camp. There's not a lot of extra pizzazz to everything. And you got a bunch of guys that are hungry that, felt like, it's not a moral victory, and I'm not into that. But man, I think we hung together really well last year. This New York media is a beast, and I'd always heard about it, but seeing it last year firsthand was eye opening. And I'm proud of the group we have. We hung together. So I think got a lot of people that took their lumps last year collectively and hung in there together, and hopefully we'll reap the rewards of that foundational, let's call it, working on our virtues last season, and being, continuing to stick together, being patient, loving each other. Hopefully all that'll pay off this season.
Yeah, we mentioned Hard Knocks, no Hard Knock cameras. That means there's no Thomas Morstead big Hard Knocks moment. You had your segment there where they're focusing on you sprinting on and off the field, and the guys are mic'd up and they're commenting about, how you're just flying back and forth as they're talking about you. You see Morstead whizzing by and everything. You got a decent little play there on Hard Knocks last summer.
Listen, I wasn't looking for it. I can tell you that. I didn't even know that was coming until the night of the thing. And one of the people that was working on the crew said, "Hey, make sure you watch the show tonight." So it was a funny thing. And I think, people, thought it was, I think the biggest thing was that people realized it was just some part of the process I've always done. I didn't start doing that because of Hard Knocks. And so, there's all sorts of, all specialists have their little weird things that they do that are different. And at the end of the day, you can't, whether people think it's cool or not, doesn't matter. Do what you got to do to be ready to play.
So real quickly, I know you got to run here. Last question for you. A year ago, I was asking you about all the Super Bowl hype and everything, and you just cut me off. You're like, listen, we're in August. Do you know how far away the Super Bowl is? How many things can happen between now and then? And of course, we witnessed exactly that. So I'll rephrase the question this year. Even though you say you're a little bit under the radar, certainly the Jets have a lot of eyes on them here. What do you like best about this team? We don't have to talk about Super Bowl and playoffs and predictions and all that, but what do you like best about this group of New York Jets this season?
I listen, every year your team, even if you have some of the same pieces, every year's team is different. They take on a different personality every year. The chemistry is different every year. So I don't know that I can answer that yet. Like I said, I think you got a lot of people that, pardon my language, but kind of ate shit last year, and just had to swallow that a little bit. And guys just hung in there. They kept battling. I remember at the end of the season, people are moaning about us winning games. It didn't matter. And that's not what the culture you want to have is. Guys go out to win games. That's it. We're in the business of winning, to quote my old buddy John Vilma, and that's all that matters. And if that's the culture, that's the culture, and that's what you want. So hopefully that'll pay dividends for us this year. Maybe if you have me on towards the end of the season, I'll be able to answer that question a little better.
Well, we'll have you back on near the end of the season then.
Perfect.
Thomas Morstead, puntforals.org for more information. Keep knocking them inside the 20. Cost you a few bucks, but it's going to be well worth it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on, Jim.